Normally, um, we talk a lot about certain spiritual paths and experiences and liberation and so forth. Today, I'm going to change a little bit and narrate you some very interesting life or a very interesting life story. And that is of a great saint who lived in India, and his name was Shirdi Sai Baba. Not to be confused with the Sai Baba who died recently, bless his soul, who lived in Puttaparthi, but I'm talking of this Shirdi Sai Baba who died in 1918, and he was in Shirdi for a few decades doing some amazing stuff. Now, the stories that I will narrate are very interesting because he was very much performing very mind-blowing miracles that had been or have been witnessed by tens of thousands of people, including by the police, by the doctors, and so forth. So it's not something lost in time, not corroborating. It's being really, really corroborated by independent witnesses. Now, I'm not pushing anything, I'm not trying to make you believe anything. I just want to narrate to you something very interesting because I don't follow particularly any religion or any guru. I just follow, I live in pure presence. That's all that is needed. So anyhow, around I think it was 1870, in a very isolated and small village in central India called Shirdi, um, this guy appeared. He was virtually dressed in rags, and he remained all his life dressed in rags. Even when he had hundreds of thousands of people who would have given him the earth. And also, um, he lived in a dilapidated mosque that very often, it rained inside. And all his life in Shirdi, he refused his disciples to repair it, to put a roof, to do anything. He just refused it. And he went to beg every day. Now, talking about money, something that is very interesting to start the stories is once he was sitting with a lot of people around him, and he did something which he did quite frequently. As I said, he never had any money on him. He was begging his food and he had always those rags on. But he looked at someone who was a rather wealthy person, somebody in the crowd, and he said, can you give me this much money? And the guy went, sure, Baba, here it is. And he gave him the money. Sai Baba took it, he turned to somebody else in the crowd, and he said, tomorrow the bailiffs are going to evict you, your family, your wife, your children out of your house. And I know you are desperate. This is the exact sum of the money you need. Isn't it quite amazing? Now, there are some pretty, again, mind-blowing things, because at one point, he called some of his closest disciples, and he said, I'm going now to die, but I will come back after 3 days. And it is important that you surround me and you protect me and you don't allow the police, to take my body away or the doctors to take it away and then cremate it. Not before the end of 3 days. So by the second day, the police came with a doctor who, now listen to this, he very clearly witnessed, he wrote in the papers, the guy is dead as a dodo, And so the police said, okay, listen, I'm going to give you, he said to the disciples, till the 4th day. If by then he still hasn't come back. After 3 days have passed. On the fourth day, we'll take the body away. Well, by the end of the third day, he took a long breath and he came back. And as I said, he had plenty of witnesses, many, as I say, including the police and the doctors. When I went to India the first time and I stayed a few years there, that was towards the end of 1967, beginning of 1968. Sai Baba had passed away in 1918. So at the time there were still many, many, many people who had met him personally and were witness to those events. And even now there are the children, sons and daughters of those peoples who heard those stories from their parents who had seen them. Now let's see, the resuscitation of the dead. Is one day a couple arrived with a very ill daughter, young lady, and they were in the hope that Sai Baba could do something for her. So the moment they arrived and they sat down, shortly after, the little girl died. The mother in particularly, she started screaming and crying and saying, "We brought here a sick girl, now we are living with a dead girl." You know, they were really desperate, very angry, they felt cheated. And Sai Baba said, wait. And he just went around the corner in a more isolated place where there were not that many people. And he sat there in prayer. Now, when he came back, and I have to tell you that Sai Baba was a little bit extravagant at times, and he turned to the girl, kicked her. Yeah, maybe not too hard, but kicked her. And he says, "What are you doing? Sleeping in my place. Shame on you." And she came back alive. She started breathing and, and she was back. And people, they saw her dead. Hundreds of people who were there, they saw her dead. They felt her pulse, they checked her breath. She had died. And so again, this is something which had a lot of witnesses. During a festival, again, his disciples prepared a great pots of food because a lot of people were going to come from lots of places, and they thought they had prepared enough for everybody. But after a few hours, more people arrived, and the food had finished. There was a big pot. It was almost terminated. And Sai Baba said, "Don't worry." And he took a big, whatever it's called, and he started giving food to everybody. It was a big, from what I read, huge wooden spoon. So he started giving food to everybody, and everybody was fed. Again, it was something which was witnessed by many, many people. Another story I like to share, which is very sweet, I think. One day people went to his dhuni. A dhuni is a fire burning, and a lot of the yogis in India and monks, they keep, a fire burning all the time. It's a symbol as well, not just to keep warm, but it's a symbol of devotion. So they arrived there and they saw a disciple of Sai Baba was applying some oil or something against burns in his forearm. And they said, "What happened?" And the people said, "You wouldn't believe it. Just a few miles from here, a woman lived with her family, and she had a little child who very often in India they wrap uh, around their chest, you know, with a cloth, they wrap it so that they can go around, do things, clean up, cook. But this time she was in front of the fire, she was preparing the fire, putting charcoal and wood and so forth, and she bent a bit too much. And I think it was a little girl, she started falling over. And she says that in that split second, you know, that second is like an eternity. She felt the girl, although she was bent, the girl was pushed back. And she was able to straighten again, and everything was safe. And that was exactly when Sai Baba had put his arm into the fire, you know, to make sure that before she fell in, he could take her out. And it had happened exactly at the same time. Um, Again, it is something, and if you read some of the books that the people that lived in Shirdi with him have written, there is so much of it. You know, it was almost while he was there a way of life. Now, one thing I like about him, so it is something that has been corroborated by hundreds, if not thousands, of witnesses, by the police and by doctors. And one thing that I like about him is that, as we said, he never had a temple of his own. He just loved to have wild dogs and feed them around him. He loved lost animals and suffering animals. And he never tried to convert anybody to anything. You know, he said, if you are a Muslim, be a good Muslim. You know, be charitable, be loving, be honest. If you are a Hindu, in the same way, be a good Hindu. If you are a Christian, be a good Christian. So he just wanted them to trust in life, to have faith, to see that sometime with devotion and prayer, things can happen. Beautiful things, beautiful healings can happen. And I will finish this chat by telling you an amazing thing that happened to me. And this, I can put my hands on the fire to tell you that is really true. So as soon as I arrived in Shirdi, or soon after I arrived in Shirdi, I went to the temple. This time it wasn't anymore the broken mosque under which Sai lived, but his disciples over the years, they have built a very, very big construction, very beautiful. So after the temple, after I paid my visit inside the temple, I stood outside and I gave a prayer. I offered a prayer to Sai, and I said, I have a question I would love you to answer. I'm going to omit exactly what it was, but it was definitely some advice, whether was it right what I was doing or I wasn't doing, or I should desist, and so forth. And after that, I also said, look, Baba, I know that you love taking money from people, not for you because you had nothing, but you would give it to people you knew were in desperate need for that money, to save their lives, to serve their living. So I have 2,000 rupees to give you, 2,000, not one more, not one less. So you give me an indication of who shall I give it to. So anyhow, so I went for a little walk and I heard the voice shout, And this man with a long beard, quite toothless, said, "Hey, are you Italian?" And I said, how do you know? And he says, "Well, you look Italian." So we became very good friends for 3 days. We went walking around there, visiting places, chatting, having a good laugh, and so forth. On the third day, he said to me, "Look, now I'm going to go back to my place down south. But why don't we go and um, have some fun and so forth before I leave?" And and somehow, I was a bit hesitant, and he said to me, you are full of so many doubts and sense of guilt. Don't you know that Baba loves you no matter what?" And it was a precise answer, exact answer I was looking for to my original question. Uh, it really, it wasn't just a coincidence, it was very clear. But listen to this is even more fun. Because then he said, "I would love in my village to open a vegetable stall and just, spend the rest of my life having enough money selling fruits and veg. But I need some money to do it. Do you think you could help me?" And I said, "How much do you need? How much do you think that was?" 2,000 rupees. Can you give me 2,000 rupees? Which I gladly did. But can you not tell me if this is not quite mind-blowing? And this is not the only thing that happened after my visit. And I think a large number of people that go there with an open heart, silent mind, they will tell you those things happen to them as well. So it's a place charged with energy and love. So I don't know, I hope you have enjoyed these stories. They're really true, and I'm glad I was part of them. Thank you very much, and have a good time. Take care.